Good evening. It is 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday, July 16th, 2024, and this regular meeting of the Sandpoint Planning and Zoning Commission is now called to order in council chambers at City Hall, 1123 West Lake Street, Sandpoint, Idaho. For the record, I am Chairman John Hastings presiding. Also present are Commissioners Mo Stunkel, Amelia Boyd, Wayne Benner, and Scott Torpy. Commissioners Grant Simmons and Ivan Rimar are absent at this time. We will now recite the Pledge of Allegiance. If you will please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just a quick announcement. There are listening devices available at the back table. If anybody should need one, they can go back there and request one from city staff. Are there any general announcements from commissioners? I might mention that tomorrow evening is a city council meeting where, if all goes according to plan, we may have a final approval of a new comprehensive plan that has been in the works for 4 years, coming up on 5 years, but we had, of course, some interruptions in the middle of that. So, but the intent is that plan will be approved tomorrow. So if you want to have any kind of input into that, that would be an opportunity. There's been many opportunities throughout the process, but it could go through tomorrow evening. So if you want any further input, please be there. Perhaps I should also take this opportunity to welcome Mr. Bildine. Why don't you stand away? We have a new city planner that joined us yesterday, and second day on the job, and tomorrow it'll all fall in his lap, I'm sure. I don't know. But welcome, Mr. Dean, welcome. Okay. Do we have any general announcements from city staff? Okay, the next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from our June 18th, 2024 meeting. I will entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? We pass. All right. The first item on the agenda this evening is a public hearing and a request to create 4 lots and dedicate a 60-foot public right-of-way for Turbine Drive, providing frontage and access to the proposed lots. The site is legally described as Lot 5 of Kodiak Park and a portion of the southeast quarter of Section 9 and the southwest quarter of Section 10, Township 57 North, Range 2 West, Boise Meridian, City of Sandpoint, Bonner County, Idaho. A notice of public hearing was published in the Bonner County Daily Bee, the city's newspaper of record, on June 25th, 2024. The order and procedure for tonight's public hearings will be as follows. There will be an explanation of the subject of the public hearing by city staff, then a presentation by the applicant. Please note that commissioners should address their questions to the applicant at that time. Opening of the public hearing, at which time the public may provide testimony. Questions should be asked of those testifying at that time. The order for those providing testimony will be as follows: those in favor, followed by neutral, and finally those opposed. Applicant's rebuttal testimony, at which time questions may be asked of the applicant. Please note that if new facts are elicited during the rebuttal, the public will be given an opportunity to comment on any new facts. We'll then close the public hearing and the commission will deliberate. No new information may be provided after the hearing has been closed, with questions directed only to city staff during deliberations. Before we proceed any further, I would like to ask for confirmation from each commissioner, please, that you have no ex parte contact and have no conflict of interest as pertains to this request. I'll start on my right.
None.
None here?
No.
No. No.
Excellent. And I will now yield the floor to Darren Fluke for an introduction of this request and explanation of the application.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. I'm happy to be back with you this evening to hear this item for a preliminary plat for the Daher #1 subdivision. That's PS 23-0001. The site is located here between Great Northern Road and the Sandpoint Airport. As the chairman noted, this consists of one platted lot, which is essentially the existing facility, and then an unplatted parcel here to the west, which can
consists of a single parcel on both sides of what is incorrectly labeled here as Silver Wing. That's actually Turbine Drive there, but the GIS for some reason wanted to call it Silver Wing. So in summary, the plat you're seeing this evening is 29 acres, 4 lots. Each of those lots are from 2 to 18 acres in size. And this includes the dedication of Turbine Drive as public right-of-way. The zoning for the property is industrial general, or IG. As is shown here, this gives you a little bit bigger picture of the zoning in the neighborhood. And so the parcels on all sides of this are zoned industrial general, with the exception to the west, of course, which is in an unincorporated Bonner County. So not a part of this. The preliminary plat looks like this. I can bring this up and we can zoom around if needed, but just to walk you through what you're seeing here. Lot 1 is the lot in this location here. Lot 2 is the existing facility. Lot 3 is another lot here that has frontage on Great Northern. In fact, lots 1 and 3 both take frontage and access off Great Northern Road to their west. And then there is a lot 4 to the south of the existing Turbine Drive here. The commission will note that that lot 4 is encumbered by some jurisdictional wetlands, and there is a condition of approval requiring a sign off from the Army Corps prior to any development on that lot. In addition, I should back up and let you know that you see the old parcel line right here. And the reason they're doing that is they have parking that exists on this side of that line. They wanted that full facility, including all of its parking, to be on a single lot. So my assumption is that they had bought this unplatted parcel at some point to expand that parking. And now we're in the process of combining that parcel with their lot, putting everything for the existing Daher facility, which is lot 2, on a single lot. And then the other 3 lots will be eligible for development. One of the other things unique to this plat is that Turbine Drive is right now a private road. And so by making it public, it will need to be improved to public road standards, which will include a fire approved turnaround here at the terminus, and is going to also involve the relocation of this existing gate that goes into the Silver Wing plat to the south and east of this project. These are the conditions of approval. They're actually fairly brief. This is a fairly straightforward application. You have these in your packet, of course, and so I'm not going to read each one of these, but in concert with the other items on the record, we feel that these conditions will ensure that the plat and ensuing development that happens on those lots will be in conformance with. So that is a very high level overview of the project. If the commission had specific questions regarding any of that, I'd be happy to take those now.
Any commissioners have questions?
No.
At this point? No, I guess we're good to move on.
All right.
I will now yield the floor for the applicant's presentation. If the applicant or representative, do we have somebody here? Oh, yes, we do. Please step to the podium and introduce yourself.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is David Shook and I'm with Dyer Inc. Nothing really to add to the staff report. It's quite comprehensive. We had the property there. It's more acreage than we need. The 2 lots that are in front on Great Northern don't provide us with a lot of use because they don't have access to the runway, which is our main business. So our hope is that we can sell those lots to a developer who would be able to put in the infrastructure necessary to put businesses there that would be in support of our operations.
Thank you. Commissioners, do you have any questions for the applicant before he leaves?
Quick. Sorry.
None.
None? No. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Please note that for both of our public hearings this evening, all written comments received were either included in the meeting packet or if received in time prior to the meeting were forwarded to the commissioners. I would like to ask for your attention at this time, please, as I recite the standards for public testimony during both of our public hearings this evening. Number one, testimony shall directly address the subject at hand. Testimony shall not be personally derogatory towards any individual, organization, or business. Public comment opportunities are for comment only. Do not direct questions to the commission or to staff. In the interest of time, testimony shall not be repetitious, and each speaker is allotted no more than 3 minutes. If your testimony fails to comply with these standards, it may be declared out of order and you will be asked to cease. Those who wish to speak will need to complete a sign-up form and hand it to the clerk. Do not approach the dais. The forms are available on the table back there by the door, and you may give it to city staff at the back table. Those in attendance are not to disrupt this meeting or the business at hand that is being taken up by the commission. Disruptive behavior includes clapping, disruptive noises, and exclamations from the audience. We will now prepare to proceed with the public hearing. Just a reminder, in the interest of time, please do not repeat prior comments made by others, but simply state your support for those comments. Each speaker will be allowed up to 3 minutes unless time is gifted, and then the time limit is 6 minutes. If anyone wishes to gift their time to another speaker, a sign-up form still needs to be completed by both parties. And the public hearing is now open. We will begin with those who wish to testify in favor. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers lined up here?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Okay,
We do not have anybody who wishes to speak in favor.
okay. Neutral?
Yes. Linda Larson.
She's here to speak on turns. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, we do not have anybody signed up to speak on the item number 2 for
Item
the
no-
turbine subdivision.
Okay, on the turbine subdivision. Yes, thank you. All right, that was a quick public hearing. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to, at this time, voice their opinions one way or the other? And if not, we will move on. Before I close the public hearing, commissioners, do you have any final questions for the applicant?
No.
We're doing good. Okay. The public hearing is now closed and the commission will deliberate. No new information may be provided and questions may be directed only to city staff. Any commissioners have any questions? I mean, deliberations amongst ourselves?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Appears to be. Okay, I would entertain a motion. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I move that the Sandpoint Planning and Zoning Commission, after consideration of the criteria and relevant standards of Idaho Code and Sandpoint City Code, recommend approval of city application number PS 23-0001, Daher number 1 subdivision Kodiak Aircraft Company's request for approval of a preliminary plat to subdivide 29 acres into 4 lots on the east side of Great Northern Road on parcels RPS 00000105804A and RPS 3A863000050A, commonly known as 1200 Turbine Lane. The recommendation is based upon the staff report and relevant evidence and testimony contained in the public record and is subject to conditions of approval as noted in the staff report.
Second that.
Any discussion on the motion? If not, Madam Clerk, would you give us a roll call?
Commissioner Simmons,
Not here.
Commissioner Dunkel,
Yes.
Commissioner Hastings,
Yes,
Commissioner Boyd,
Yes.
Commissioner Benner,
Yes.
Commissioner Torpe.
Yes.
motion passes. Thank you. Our second public hearing this evening is a request to subdivide a 3.48 acre parcel number RPD 0000273-150A into 8 single-family residential lots ranging in size from 14,333 to 20,667 square feet. The property is located on the south side of Ontario Street, approximately 215 feet east of Division Avenue, and is zoned residential single-family. A notice of public hearing was published in the Bonner County Daily Bee, the city's newspaper of record, on June 25th, 2024. The order and procedure for public hearing will be the same as directed at our first public hearing. Before I proceed, I would like to ask for confirmation from each commissioner please, that you have had no ex parte contact and have no conflict of interest as pertains to this request?
None.
None?
No.
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 Excellent. And I will now yield the floor to Darren Fluke for an introduction of this request and explanation of the application.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. The project in front of you tonight is situated here on the south side of Ontario, a couple hundred feet east of Division Street. I'm sure you're all well familiar with the site.
Where microphone closer, sir?
The project consists of 3.48 acres, and the proposal is for 8 single-family residential lots. The lots range in size from 14,300 square feet approximately to 20,600 square feet approximately. Turnstone Lane is proposed as a new public right-of-way, 60 feet in width in compliance with the code. That would be a 32-foot street section and would allow for parking on both sides of the road. Zoning is residential single-family. And the zoning in the neighborhood looks like this. The parcel in question is the large one here. And so we do have a mix of zoning designations, commercial C across the street on the county property. You recently saw a plat on this project here. And then we've got some mixed use residential to the west and some multifamily residential to the southwest. Properties to the east and south are all zoned single family residential. The preliminary plat looks like this with the lots arranged around the future public right of way. At this point, I would acknowledge that we have received a number of comments from the public regarding storm drainage. The commission has those in front of them. This is a well-known issue in this section of the city, and the city engineer has worked closely with the applicant on a stormwater plan that will comply with the city's standards. And of course, as with all subdivisions, this does have to go through an engineering review prior to the issuance of any permits for the construction of drainage, streets, sewer, water, and the dry utilities as well. So what this will essentially, just to give you a very high level overview, is the drainage will be collected at a low spot here at the bottom of the cul-de-sac in a drop inlet, which will then be piped to a basically a holding facility here between these two lots. And then it will be piped over to catch some existing drainage offsite to the west. Again, that will be re-reviewed at the final plat, well, at the final construction drawing review stage of the project. And I would note for the commission that we are requesting that you add a condition of approval, just simply noting that the final plat dimension and establish drainage easements as necessary to accommodate the approved final drainage plan. And so if you would include that in your motion, should you vote to approve, we would like that to be added. Those, the easements required, just so the commission knows, let's see if I can get back here. Basically, we pick up drainage off the back of the lots as well and run them to this location. And then from here, there's a, like I said, a holding facility here that puts the drainage in a pipe that then runs along the south end of the plat. And so essentially, we just want those easements to be dimensioned on the final plat as containing those facilities that would allow maintenance workers to get in and access those as necessary. So that's the only thing that is somewhat odd about this project. It does comply with the standards of the RS zone. All of these lots far exceed the minimums as far as lot size and frontage, and it's a relatively straightforward application. So with that, I would take any questions that the commission might have.
Yes, Commissioner Boyd.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Darren, was there any consideration with, because I know, as well as you know, with the comp plan and the multimodal plan, we recommend grid streets. Was there any discussion about possibly running access from Mackey's Way and to avoid the cul-de-sac? Was that ever an option? Because I believe, I may be wrong, is it the same owner that owns that property that also owns this?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, we did go through several iterations of layouts with the applicant. And it was determined that that this was the best that we could do. And I'm trying to get to a regional view here so that I can show you. I always have trouble finding this spot on the GIS. So this is what it looks like in the vicinity of the site.
We're not seeing it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me reshare. I was seeing it. It looked great.
We'll come gather around.
Can I also add while he's looking at that, Mackey's Way is not a public right of way either, so we can't really, it's a shared driveway along all those lots right there if you, oh, he's looking. at it
I didn't
now.
hear the beginning of that. What did you say? Okay,
Excuse
wait.
me.
is that what you said?
Mackey's Way, it's not a public right of way that we can connect to with a gridded street system. It's a shared driveway, so it's on private property. So, you know,
But it-
like an adjacent neighbor, we couldn't force neighbors that are not part of the subdivision to dedicate right of way.
But it's not the same owner. I was led to believe that it was the same owner
I don't think all those lots are the same owner.
that owns.
There's 4 lots there on Mackey's Way, right? So you would have to, if you were gonna do like a gridded street system, you'd have to dedicate right away on 4 individual lot owners. The developer for this project owns the southernmost lot off of and they can speak to that during their chance to talk, but you know, so in order to actually make a right of way that came back around and looped up to Ontario, you would have to make all 4 of those property owners dedicate right away, and 3 of them are not part of the subdivision.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, what I was
Yes.
going to add is you look in the regional view here, all properties around this are developed. And so even if this were public right away and we were able to utilize it for the project, it really doesn't gain much in terms of regional connectivity. There's really nowhere else to go. This project, interestingly, has another shared driveway scenario to the south as well. And so I'm afraid the die was cast long ago on this one as far as getting better connectivity. And this seemed to be probably the best layout we could get given the configuration of the site and the neighborhood.
Chairman? I have a few,
Yes, Commissioner Torpe.
few questions, excuse me, a few questions while we have that JS map up. Could you point to where the outfall is of the proposed drainage system where it says connects to a regional drainage component?
Yep, and Brandon can speak to this more, but the idea is that you would pick up the drainage at a low spot about here and put it in a pipe, a fairly sizable pipe that would then extend across here and pick up an existing facility at this location here.
Brandon, what is that facility right there?
The facility that he's talking about picking up.
That's where the plan shows it, the pipe outfall is. So what's there at that
Yeah, so there's
odd corner?
So this is obviously not ideal, but if you zoom out a little bit more, so you can see Ontario. Actually, the West Point place, actually all of that stormwater that we've been talking about with that previous project, it goes into a control structure on the north side of Ontario, and it goes underneath the road. And then it goes further east. So just past Mackey's Way. And then it crosses the road, and there's actually, it just kind of drains in everybody's backyard through all those lots. Heading south, and then it goes all the way through those lots, and then it ends up back in an inlet at the next street down, which is city stormwater. So if you keep going south.
So that stormwater from this project would pass through the properties that are between Mackey Way, served by Mackey Way, and that next street that runs north-south. I don't know what the name of that is. So
Yeah.
it would just move through that sort of uncontrolled sort of sheet flow to the street, and then it gets caught by the street drainage, presumably, or
Let's say
what?
that again, just so I understand.
Well, I don't have a cursor in my hand, but the point of outfall on the drawings, we could go there again
Mhm.
with the cursor. Yeah, right there. So in order to get from there to what I thought you just said was the whole, plan here, the whole strategy is to get stormwater from the north side of Ontario and this project and elsewhere to the road that we see with toward the right side of this. What's the name of that road that runs north and south there?
Oh, I was just trying to get there, Mr. Chair.
Olive?
Mhm.
Olive. Is that the strategy? No. Where does the water
So it goes
go?
further south to Birch, and there's an inlet in Birch that it ends up in.
So it just runs
It
through
runs
those
in everybody's
properties?
backyard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand that now. You've answered my question. So my questions now about the stormwater plan, concern its maintenance. And I'm not sure who would, maybe staff can't answer this question, but if and when this project is approved as designed, is the city responsible for the maintenance of the swales, the catch basin, and that underground gravelled retention structure, if it ever needs maintenance? Is the city on the hook for that, or is somebody else on the hook for that?
No, I believe I already have in the plans a note, and I can make sure that this gets in there, if it isn't, but that the city typically will take responsibility for cleaning out the inlets that are within the curb line, but the gravel structure and the ditches in the private easement won't be city maintained.
So somebody else would maintain it, or
Yeah.
no one would maintain it, I guess, or, it's sort of up in the air.
Right, yeah,
Okay.
the property owners. are
Is it
responsible for
fair to say that, swales is designed in this thing, shallow, sort of slope swales, small, relatively small, will need some kind of maintenance over time
Yeah.
to function correctly?
I think just cleaning them out mostly,
Okay.
keeping them clear of debris.
And how many feet of swales are there? They're on the entire perimeter of the project, right?
Yeah,
Pretty much? Okay.
yeah, it's the entire west, east, and south boundary will be a swale.
Okay, okay. And is there any contribution from the road itself, the drainage system on Ontario? Does it, if you put a street perpendicular to Ontario headed south here, is that going to capture any stormwater running along the curb of the street and allow it onto this property?
Say that again, if you
Okay.
run a
So
street.
if the runoff that exists now on Ontario and the movement of that water, east or west, I don't know where it goes. When you put a street running south in the middle of this project we're talking about, will that act as, and that street slopes to the south? In other words, if nothing is done, it's gonna, if water is moving east or west, it's gonna capture the flow that currently exists on Ontario and drain it onto this property. Right? I mean, there's a slope to that road and that's the way it's gonna go. So is there a, as part of this plan, do you recall if there's a mention and identification of the volume of the rate of flow and the volume of that water that presumably, and I don't know if it will, but it seems like it's a chance it will flow onto the property from offsite, quote, offsite?
Yeah, I know there is a discussion of that, but I will say that right now it already does that. So there's not, it flows off the side of the road and it ends up on all those private properties.
It does. Okay. All right. All right. So there is some offsite contribution to this project, which changes the design criteria for the stormwater management system from a 25-year storm to a 50-year storm, correct?
Yeah, the conveyance system is required to pass a 50-year storm.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess that's my sort of my last question. The conveyance system sounds like run everything to the end of this cul-de-sac, as has been described already, and then put it through several, well, it's 36 by 20 by 3.5 feet of gravel packed in the ground somewhere. And presumably that would capture and reduce the peak flow. I think that's probably its intention, is to reduce the peak flow, is to retain the water in order to reduce the peak flow off of the site, which is what the standard, the code requires. If that retention basin is saturated with seasonal groundwater during this rainfall event, presumably that wouldn't serve that function of retaining and reducing the peak flow off of this thing. And I have to think that it's possible that the peak flow after this project is completed will be, the peak flow off of the project site will be greater than exist currently. That there, in fact, may be no flow off the I don't know what the flow is off the project site, but after this is all done, there's going to be some, and it's going to go on all these other properties you talked about. So does the plan, I guess I can't help but ask this question, does the plan you see preserve the properties that exist around this project without adding to their problems that some of the people have commented on? And will it protect the properties that are being developed here so that they themselves are not harmed by a very infrequent, but still, according to the code, this storm that we must design these things for once every 50 years? It seems like a big ask, given what is there now.
So the code, actually, the entire intent of our stormwater code is that they have to demonstrate that the peak flow leaving the site does not increase beyond the existing.
Right.
So right now, that entire wooded lot drains to the southeast corner of the lot and onto private property. So what's going to happen with the construction of this new subdivision is they're going to slow the water down so that the additional impervious created by the roads and the individual development on the lots is the runoff is slowed down and the peak flow leaving the site doesn't increase.
So that gravel structure under the ground is what's going to slow down the incremental flows, the rate of flow after development. That's the intention of that thing.
That and the swales that are along the backside of the property, because they're generally flat, so they're going to provide some detention as well.
Okay.
And I think the design engineer's here, so if I get anything wrong, she might be able to explain it more clarity, hopefully.
Okay, when we get to that part, that'd be great.
And for clarification, the stormwater catchment basin, when the water leaves that, it's just a gravity flow. There's no pumping involved. Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the easement we're talking about would go. The drainage easement would need to be on that one property that's at the end of Mackey Road to get.
That's right. Same owner as the developer of this property.
Gotcha.
So the only way this works is that they own that property and they have provided that they're going to record an easement across that across the property in order to allow the flow from here to be controlled better to get into the existing drainage that's running north-south.
And I have one other question too. Do we know, and whoever on city staff can answer this best? I mean, Ontario is a substandard street at this point. Is there anything in the plans where that will get curb, gutter, and sidewalk on the south side of the road, where no, it does on the north side, but it does not on the south side?
You mean for the whole corridor?
All of Ontario, but particularly as pertains to what's in front of this proposal.
Well, there's not any plan for a capital improvement project from the
Okay.
city to do all of Ontario that I'm aware of. But this, as required by code, this subdivision will be required to do frontage improvements, which includes curb and gutter and sidewalk along
In front of this property. Gotcha.
in front of all public right away frontage.
And I guess my reasoning with that question was to get what Commissioner Torpey was saying. When that is done, would that curb and gutter in any way keep more water from going into this property?
Would what curb and gutter?
If there was curb and gutter, well, there would be curb and gutter on the south side of Ontario for this development to proceed. Will that keep the water that flows in the street now? Would that keep it from going into this cul-de-sac?
I'm sorry,
that-
I don't understand the question. I'm sorry.
I can show you.
Well, if we do curb and gutter along all of Ontario,
No, just in front of this. I'm just trying to make sure that as we're saying.
it won't keep water from going into this
Okay.
cul-de-sac. It'll direct water into the cul-de-sac.
Okay, there would not be additional drains on that curb and gutter. It would just be curb and gutter.
Correct.
Gotcha.
And Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
for clarification of the record, the discussion of the stormwater management as it's
Okay.
designed so far tonight is to help the commissioners understand the conditions that have been recommended by staff. It is not a requirement for evaluation of stormwater at this stage of preliminary plat application, nor is it an element that you can utilize for approval or denial either way. It was simply to address the comments that have been received to try to help the public understand the work that's been done so far, as well as to provide the commission direction and explanation with regard to the condition that you're being asked to approve.
thank you for that clarification.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I do have one question regarding the stormwater, but it's more on the plat part. Will the final plat then show an easement all the way around for the stormwater?
Yeah, so that was the what Darren was talking about, that additional recommended condition that we added at the last minute would be to add easements along the west, south, east portions of every property line.
And then also where the catchment part is there.
Right, and then on the other property to the southeast that's outside the subdivision.
So to answer your question, the easement that will be located on the parcel that's outside the subdivision will not be identified on this plat. It
Yeah.
can be noted on the plat, but it won't physically be identified.
Yeah, I was more interested in just on the plat.
Perfect.
This will need to be recorded as a separate instrument across the south of this lot.
gotcha. And just another question then too for city staff, as far as I noticed, the homes to the south side of this, when I was looking at the property, many of them built their homes up, probably because they were fully aware of this problem. What are there limitations to that on how high somebody could choose to build the footprint of their house, which would solve their problem, but perhaps lead to other problems?
There are not, although there, all development within the subdivision is required to comply with the approved stormwater plan. So if it conflicted with that, then there would be an opportunity to not allow them to do that.
Excellent, thank you.
And just to be clear, the main purpose of that easement is so, lot 6, for example, if lots 8 and 7 drain to the south, lot 6 fills in their ditch because they come in and, we typically don't require people to get a permit to do landscaping work. If for some reason they filled in their ditch and it started causing stormwater problems, then, it's the plat requires them to comply with the stormwater plan. So we have a mechanism for making them
Enforce.
enforce it and reconstruct that ditch to match the approved stormwater plan.
Thank you.
I'm trying to learn. So that would be the 8 lots as a community would be responsible for that, or would each homeowner be responsible for the maintenance of the easement that borders their property? Who, is it the latter?
Each homeowner. yeah, the
Okay,
latter.
it's the latter. And when there's something common, like, well, let's say it's been observed that the gravel infiltration structure is fouled with material over the years and it just doesn't serve its purpose. that's a common thing. Would that still be the responsibility of these last two, lots 4 and 5, or would that be, I don't know, somebody else?
One of the requirements of the final approved stormwater plan is that they identify who's responsible for maintenance.
Okay.
So I don't know if that's been decided yet. For something like that, it's either, yeah, the adjacent property owner, or sometimes we would require that they form some sort of HOA if it's important enough. So that there's some mechanism to, that there's a group of people that'll maintain it. I also just wanted to add to the discussion about that rock trench. The design engineer had a geotech do a site evaluation, and they have determined that there is some infiltration capacity of the soil at this location. And so they are part of their calculations do rely on the ability of that rock trench to infiltrate some amount of water, not all of the on-site water. It's not all going to be infiltrated on site, certainly not when during springtime when the underlying soil is saturated. But they are relying on majority of that, part of the year of that storm to be infiltrated instead of just run directly off-site.
Any other commissioners, any other questions for city staff, or we'll hear the presentation from the applicant? We'll still have opportunities for more questions later. Okay. Then at this time, I'll yield the floor for the applicant presentation.
Hello, I'm Nicole Costello with Clearwater Engineering, the design engineer on this project, representing the applicant. I was going to do some stormwater presenting, but I think we'll just jump to answering stormwater questions based off how that went. To piggyback off of what Brandon was just saying, we did have a geotech first thing, actually, where to go with stormwater on this project. Get a geotech on site, evaluate the infiltration properties and the groundwater levels. Based off what they found, there are some infiltrative properties, but they've added in like a factor of safety even to that for their recommendation for this boulder pit. The boulder pit itself is actually sized to detain the entire storm, 25-year storm event that's required by the city code without infiltrating at all. So it's over-designed. And then there is the additional, I guess, it has to draw down within, I believe, 72 hours, whatever that requirement is. It does meet that drawdown time based off the infiltration rate that, again, has been designed with a factor of safety of even slower rate than what was measured on site. Trying to go through all the questions here. The existing irrigation ditch, I know you had that pulled up earlier. You mentioned that it just kind of flows off into people's backyards. I do believe that's an existing old irrigation ditch or drainage ditch that runs behind those homes. It's going to continue to do what it has historically. As was brought up, at existing low point to the site is the southeast corner. That is the new discharge location. I'm not really sure how else to address that, except that it's going to continue to do what it has always done. In terms of the curb and gutter, we have proposed those frontage improvements, and the curb and gutter will, yes, direct that water from Ontario onto the property where it will be treated and detained on site. Do you still have some questions on that stormwater, or is now the time to ask those?
Not at this time. Do you have more of your presentation, or was that your focus?
No, stormwater was, I know that this site has been a question for a lot of people in terms of stormwater, so we wanted to make sure that that was the forefront of what we tackled in developing this site. Like I said, the boulder pit is an ideal solution in that it is very low maintenance. It does not require any sort of regular maintenance. It's just in the event that if it were to, I suppose, pass a storm that's larger than the 25-year that's required to be detained, that is what the outlet to the southeast corner is for. It's an emergency overflow. So technically, that discharge off-site should not even be happening unless there's a storm greater than what's required by the city. So we've already over-designed it to detain the 25-year, not even discharge off-site for the 25-year storm. And that's just put in place as an emergency overflow. So keep that in mind. That is actually beyond what is required by the applicant to do. And that emergency would discharge as it has historically. So.
Chairman,
Yes.
I guess since we're going to maybe stay on the subject for a moment, I do have a couple of questions. First, you refer to it as a boulder pit, and the drawings, if I'm reading it correctly, refers to 3/4 inch to 2-inch clean crushed drain rock. Is that?
It's a term, it's an interchangeable term for the infiltration trench, boulder pit.
So what would be the void ratio and something like that?
It's designed with the assumed 30%.
30%. So you've got roughly 5,500 gallons of storage in there.
Yeah, it accounts for the road and the assumed development of each lot of 2,000 square foot home, driveway.
Does
all
it
that.
account for what's running off of Ontario?
No,
And does the runoff from Ontario, this is back to Brandon, in the city code, does it require a change from a 25-year basis storm to a 50-year basis storm because it's off-site?
That, if that question is for city staff.
It is, it's for
It'll have to
Brandon.
come later then.
Oh,
'cause we're
okay,
in the
excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Okay. That's all.
that's all I have for now. Is there any other questions?
Any other questions for the applicant from any commissioners at this time?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, yes, Commissioner Dunkel.
Thank you. So lot sizes they're a little larger than the minimum. What was the reasoning behind that?
It would be nice to have a larger lot in town. No, just, we looked at a few different options. Part of that is the larger the lot, the more area for the swales, stormwater control. The more dense, the more stormwater we would need to detain and find places for on site. So this project was originally proposed a while back with much denser and much denser development, and the stormwater became a bit of a hassle. So that was another way of addressing the stormwater.
Do you have an idea of what kind of dwellings will be here? Are they gonna be
Single family homes, or, I mean, what do you mean?
like size, or? I'm just curious, cause these are much larger than anything we've seen in maybe my whole time here. And everything that we've seen in the last several years has been virtually at the city minimum
Sure.
because of affordable housing and so forth. So.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that
Applicant.
the lot size, Norris Boyd, the developer, the lot size again was based on our stormwater considerations, had to have enough open space to get the absorption that we needed. We had a design prior to this, which was 16 lots, and the stormwater was just not workable with that kind of density on it. Believe me, if I could have got more lots on it, I would have. But again, and we've used the underground gravel pits in a number of places. And I have one that's at least 25 years old that we have not maintained. It's a really good way to do it without having the retention pond, which breeds mosquitoes and all that. It turns out to be a really nice solution. The other thing I would mention, there was some questions about Mackey's Way. Mackey's Way is a driveway. If you try to make a street out of it, then you have all the houses on that side don't have the front yard requirements that they need to be on a frontage on a street. So using Mackey's Way was just unusable.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if we could ask this gentleman to identify himself, please.
Well, I believe he did, but for the record, what was your name again,
Norris
sir?
Boyd,
Norris.
developer. The last thing I'll say is I own the lot on the southeast corner. The people who own the development, that is a separate LLC, so it's not really the same owner. Just a detail.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. And did you get the name for the record?
Mr. Chairman, I did. Thank you.
You bet.
Another question. So do you plan to build or you plan to sell lots individually, bare?
But I'm not really sure what the plan is. Right now, the lot in the southeast corner, my wife and I are gonna build on as soon as we get finished with you guys.
Will there be parking on street? On the street, on this cul-de-sac and on the street? It looks like a pretty big street. It looks wide, so I'm just curious.
To be perfectly honest with you, I can't answer that question for you. I would assume since it's built to street requirements,
It would be allowed,
No.
but I mean, it's up to the individual homeowners if they.
It looks like you could land an airplane there. I'm just saying.
That is the city minimum. That is the city.
I'm just saying, usually we're questioning if there's enough room to get a car by each other, so that's why I'm asking. That's all I have.
The
Thanks.
city requirement and the fire turnaround.
Commissioners, any other questions at this time? All right. Applicant, any final words for us? Thank you for your presentation.
thank you, sir,
Thank you.
ma'am.
Oh, yeah.
With no additional questions, please note that the public hearing rules that were recited for the prior agenda item are the same for this public hearing. And that public hearing is now open. And we will begin with those who wish to testify in favor. Madam Clerk, do we have anybody who wishes to testify in favor?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak neutral?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Linda Larson.
Thank you to everyone on the board for volunteering your time. I think I know just about everyone up there. It's a great service to our community that you do to spend your time here and not out at the beach swimming tonight. So thank you. My name is Linda Larson and I live on the property bordering the property at 607 South Division. And I just do want to emphasize that that the properties have a lot of water on them, and not just the bordering properties, but also my neighbor 615 Division. His property is not adjacent to that, but the water from that property flows down through 1313. My neighbor Gary is here. He lives at 1313 Ontario. It goes through his backyard and hits 615. I think the drainage idea and what I've heard sounds really great. What's just something that caught my attention was the 5,500 gallons. And I don't quite understand if that was the full amount that that would capture. And I don't think that that is going to be enough. I have standing water in my backyard for 3 to 4 months every year. Gary says 4 months. I can see it in 615. It goes through that property to his front yard, and that is there much longer than mine is in the backyard. So anyway, it's just a lot of water, and I'm just a little concerned about that. But I do feel a lot better hearing that they have thought about this. The only other thing, and I know it's probably just a waste of my time and your time to talk about it, but I'm going to say it anyway. Gary's lot and my lot could have 2 or 3 more houses on it, and thinking long-term for people, for the city to have more density, thinking about our housing crisis that we do have here. It would be nice if there was some access, an alleyway even, to get to give access to those areas, those back lots that are a little bit landlocked at this point. And also, I just wanted to mention that it's not just stormwater, it's a extremely, extremely high water table. You cannot get in my crawl space almost 12 months out of the year. Because there is standing water in my crawl space. If I had a sump pump there, it would pump 24 hours a day, almost all year long. So I just wanted to add that too. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, anyone else wishing to speak neutral?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Gary Reeser.
I think you guys all got a note from me, might be in,
Yes.
and I don't know if you read it, but it pretty well pertains to the property there. I've been there 30 years. It always fills up the water in the subdivision they're getting ready to do. It's a water problem, their whole property, mostly on the west side, but the whole thing is water. They need storm sewers along the Ontario because there's nothing on the south side. All the way through there, it's just water. We have geese and ducks there for 4 months of the year. It's a mess. And if they get the water in, get rid of the water, it'd be a great subdivision. I'd be for it in a minute. So, but the water, you guys have to take care of the water for us because we can't. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, we have more wishing to testify neutral.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. John O'Hara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. My name is John O'Hara. I own the adjacent property at 603 Mackey's Way, have for over 20 years. And to echo other folks, the facility, as it's called, is a ditch behind my home that drains a lot of the acreage to the north and west over by the whole bank, all of the small shops, White Cross, that area. Kind of all comes this way and through our backyard, as well as the other folks' backyards. And that is something that I don't intentionally maintain, but I also knew that it had to stay what it was, and it stays that way. And I hope other people are aware that that's our job as citizens to keep that water moving in the right direction. My biggest concern is the haphazardness of all of the development there. Nothing is connected, despite what the comprehensive plan says about traditional neighborhoods and a grid system for streets, and the fact that cul-de-sacs should be discouraged. And instead of incorporating perhaps the owners on Mackey's Way to create perhaps a denser development that might have been able to deal with runoff more proactively and provide a U-shaped city street in some fashion to have a more neighborhood feel in a smaller area with smaller lots, would have been something I would have liked to have seen considered. All of the wording that's in the comp plan about connectedness and grid streets still exists. And even tomorrow night's meeting with the city council, that wording is there. And while the staff mentions what the project does conform to, those are some of the things that it does not conform to that are in the comp plan. So I would just request that you think about that, because it's not the only piece of property that's going to be subject to infill in town. And it simply needs to be a more holistic approach so that a bigger problem like stormwater management can actually be solved to the betterment of our 4-unit development, the developers' development that could create a little more density within the city limits to potentially solve some of the issues that we face. Anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, no one else has signed up to speak on this item.
Okay, on this item at all?
That is correct.
Oh, okay, thank you. Um, Is there anyone else here this evening who wishes to speak at this time? All right, thank you. Does the applicant have any rebuttal comments to anything that came up in that testimony? Nope. Okay. So before oh, yes.
Right, I just wanted to
Okay.
say a couple of things that came up. The high groundwater, yes, it is a very high groundwater table. However, we did have that assessed with the geotechnical engineer, and the boulder pit, the infiltration trench has been sized, or the reason it's so shallow and wide is because we are required to have a 3-foot separation from that high groundwater level so that the pit does not fill up with groundwater and is just receiving surface stormwater. Bring that up.
Mr. Chair?
What, oh, we'll just, okay, yeah, question for the applicant? Okay.
So would the owner of the parcel be willing to give up some land? And it seems to me we've got a person that lives on Mackey's Way. Possibly, my impression is that he would give up or be for a street access from Ontario. Just throwing it out there, if the owner would be willing to give up some of his property to widen the street. Was there talk with the other neighbors to allow street access on Mackey's Way?
When this project was first brought, when it was the 16 lot subdivision that was discussed, I know that trying to even like loop the water main through Mackey's and loop the road through Mackey's was brought up with some homeowners. I don't know who, I was not a part of the project at that time, but I know it was denied. It was not wasn't likened by the owners along
Gotcha.
Mackey's Way to do that. Also, the water there is private. It's a driveway. It's not, there just isn't really a way to convert that
Run that.
without, quite a bit of work and funding. So, pedestrian access. Sorry, am I allowed to even bring that up if it's new information?
You can bring it up. Obviously, we've already had some new information come in.
Be in response to
Okay, okay, nope.
comments
Oh,
that were
okay.
made by the public.
Okay,
No worries.
so then never mind.
Never mind. Okay, thank you.
And no, thank you. Thank you. But I was just going to bring up, there was a couple new things that came up there. One was that the nature of this groundwater containment system, stormwater containment system is shallow to prevent it from filling with groundwater. And the other was that there was a consideration for a somehow making Mackey Way part of a more connected street. And in light of that, anybody who testified earlier, is there anything you would like to?
Mr. Chairman, those were in response to comments from the public.
I know.
Her addressing those two things were in response to the comments to the public. She didn't bring up anything new.
Oh, okay. I would have thought that the nature of that was new.
Nope.
So then we don't need to have any further discussion on that topic. Thank you for the clarification. Okay. Before I close the public hearing, do commissioners have any other questions for the applicant?
None here, no.
Okay. So the public hearing is now closed and the commission will now deliberate. No new information may be provided and questions may only be directed to city staff during our deliberations.
May I?
Mr. Torpy, yes, you had a
Okay.
question earlier.
Yeah, I think I was on the course of asking Brandon if, as previously acknowledged, water from the street and from wherever else that goes onto Ontario would enter this new cul-de-sac and be part of what has to be managed. Does that trigger the higher standard for design of a stormwater management plan from a 25-year storm to a 50-year storm?
I don't read the code that way. So the code section says that when on-site facilities must accommodate drainage from off-site, such facilities shall be designed to accommodate a 50-year storm frequency. So the way I read that is that if you have conveyance system in your stormwater system. It has to be designed so that it can accommodate a 50-year storm from a large offsite flow going through your site and discharging at the outlet. I don't read that as meaning that if you have any offsite entering your site, then you no longer design the matching the peak flows. You no longer design the 25-year. Now you have to use the 50-year. That's not how I read it, and that's not how I've ever. Could be wrong. That's just how I've been interpreting it.
Thank you for
Been reviewing these.
answering my question.
Hopefully that worked.
I want to note that in the drawings, the preliminary design of this, the groundwater table was encountered about 6 feet below existing grade on July 11th of 2023. And that likely is not the period of time when the public described their experience with standing water on the property. Just note that.
Commissioners, anything else we need to deliberate upon?
I know there's groundwater out there. I know that.
Oh, yeah. And it's close, and there's a lot of that in our entire area, not just on this particular site. I might have a question for Brandon or anyone else who might be on it. Do you envision in any way that the stormwater management plan, which is not completely designed, still a work in progress, do you see it in any way lessening the burden on the existing homeowners in the neighborhood? So not just that it won't make it worse, any potential that will make it better?
I think there's certainly potential. I can't guarantee that.
Right.
But
No.
I think there's certainly potential that it will. There's now conveyance ditches on basically surrounding this entire subdivision like a moat. And so any water that flooded on this lot over the last, several decades that ended up on the neighboring lots should no longer do that if it's constructed per the plan. It should be drained and directed to a stormwater system instead of just sitting there and ponding up and then overflowing onto neighboring lots.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I just have some comments.
pardon?
I just have some comments.
Okay, Commissioner Dunkel.
My thoughts are, I'm satisfied with the water plan. I think, this rock basin is, even though at 5,500 gallons, if it's allowed to accept a flow and to recede, and then along with evaporation and et cetera, it sounds like much improvement over almost nothing that's existing right now. I think this lot is dealing with water that's coming from another lot or many other lots. So it's a step in the right direction. And I know that after we're done here, if this is approved or if it moves forward, there'll be a lot more. There'll be more to evaluate along the way to make sure that it's not going to be a problem, hopefully. My problem is lot sizes, and maybe somebody can help me with, it sounds like this came up before and there was a more dense plan.
That would have just come to city staff.
Okay.
And then in trying to identify the stormwater solutions so that could be addressed at the time of bringing it to you, it would have been sent back to the applicant for redesign.
Is there any more? What was part of that prevented? Because couldn't nearly the same thing be done and just more lot lines made?
Well, that would be up to city staff, but there isn't going to be a mechanism for you to require the developer or the applicant to go back and redesign again to make it more dense. But I think Brandon's going to be the best person to address why this much space was needed in order to accommodate stormwater management.
Okay. Brandon, once again, man.
I actually don't think that as far as I know, the lot size doesn't have anything to do with the stormwater management. I think, my understanding is that it was just, that's what the developer wanted to do. I mean, we have minimum lot sizes, not maximum lot sizes.
I think
so.
it was before your time, Brandon.
Mhm.
There was discussion.
Okay.
Well, I'm at an impasse because I need to understand that. I feel like our comp plan says that we have an emphasis on affordability, and lot sizes have been shown to be a way for more density to be allowed, and that we've seen smaller pieces of ground with 10 times the density. One of the first applicants I saw was a smaller piece of land that had the minimum lot size was just barely over 5,000, and it was in an area where there was a swale already there and there was running water, and they bought land, wetland credits. So I feel like that, I'm not in favor of like telling people what to do with their land, but in this situation, we do have an overall view with the comp plan to help our city be attainable for people to move into by the things that we do to make it accessible for people. And I'll just say it for the millionth time, the grid street pattern thing, that's a thing with me, and it's probably always going to be. I don't know, somebody else can design that in, but I don't see it here. And I'm not a fan of cul-de-sacs, and I don't think the comp plan outlines cul-de-sacs as being, something that we're desiring either. But I mean, overall, I think, it doesn't look like a bad plan. And I think it is dealing with some other offsite issues that are out of its control. So I think the water is not as big an issue as the street and the lot sizes, in my opinion. So I'd probably not be in favor.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Boyd.
I'd like to piggyback on what Mo's just said. Yes, that's my biggest problem with it is not having a grid system. It's not only in our comp plan, but it's also in our multimodal plan. So that's the one thing, we do discourage cul-de-sacs. Is there a way to incorporate a grid system? That's what the engineers and designers are for. But I do not like how it's presented with the cul-de-sac. So I'm actually with you on this one, Mose. So, just that lack of connectivity with neighborhoods. Now you've created separate little islands in this area, in this neighborhood, that I just think, especially that part of town where you have the park down the street and you have accessibility to different areas. It just seems that you're just closing it in and not allowing that access other than on Ontario Street to other neighborhoods.
Well, Mr. Chair, we did approve several other cul-de-sacs here not too long ago, so.
And I guess my thoughts on that are that 20 or 30 years ago was the time when the grid system should have been enforced. If you have been in that neighborhood, all the streets are substandard. They're not technically streets, they're technically private driveways, but they're on the south end of that. There's about 5 homes in there that have a private driveway, and McKay, that's a private driveway. Or Mackey, my mistake, is a private driveway as well. But before those were allowed to happen, in my opinion, that was the last opportunity to put in a grid system, and that has passed us by. That's my take on this particular spot.
I have a question thank you. I have a question for our city attorney. I'm going to admit I'm still new on the commission, and I want to make sure that my thinking is sort of directed where it belongs. And so back to the dead horse I've been kicking, and that's the stormwater. I think I heard you say, and I want to put it in my own words, make sure I understand it correctly, that considering the question before us and the preliminary approval of this plat, I, as a member of this commission, should not consider the, I'll just call it my opinion of the adequacy of the stormwater management plan as presented. I should not do that. That is in another realm, and that should not be part of my thinking whatsoever.
So the stormwater management plan in the stage that it's in currently was brought to you tonight because of the condition that was added to the conditions of approval to give you a level of comfort that stormwater management is going to be addressed at the time of site review. So you are correct. Whether or not there is an adequate stormwater plan at this stage is not a standard of review for a determination of whether or not this preliminary subdivision should be recommended to council for approval.
Okay, so if the, and I'm not saying it would be, but if upon closer inspection by the city and by Brandon and with the consulting engineer, that some change needed to be made to this that had a material effect on the subdivision. I don't know what that would be, but let's just say there might be. Would that result in bringing the thing back to the commission? Or would it just kind of go forward and, you know, the changes to the subdivision would just happen, you know, by some administrative process or something?
The, your decision tonight is, can this larger parcel be carved up into smaller parcels? Is the zoning correct? Does it meet the elements of your comprehensive plan, or is it not in conflict actually with your comprehensive plan is how it's worded? Has nothing to do with the technical aspect of what might be built or how stormwater is going to be managed. It's the conditions of approval or, the conditions are designed so that you can have comfort going forward that all of the site review piece and infrastructure will be designed and built according to code.
And if I might just
Go ahead.
interject
Yeah.
a bit, and that's like, it would not come back here.
No.
From here, it would go to city council. If city council were to send it forward, then the detailed plans would come before them again, and they would approve or not approve. And they might put additional conditions on what that might be. It wouldn't come back here. We're just saying, city council, go forward.
Maybe it would come to council, all depending on whether or not there's an
Correct.
master development.
Yeah. If that clarifies any of
Did
that.
that answer your question?
I guess you know, there was some emphasis, rightly so, on, you mentioned zoning, clearly zoning, but then also the other elements, the stated priorities of our existing, let alone the, you know, the one that we're going to maybe adopt soon, about connectivity and, you know, sense of neighborhood and so forth and affordability. I don't know the comp plan as well as I hope to someday, but I'm sure it says something about the adequacy of stormwater, you know, facilities. But that should not apply here. But those other things should, but the stormwater aspect of this project should not apply to my thinking, but the connectivity and the affordability and all that should.
And I would say that the stormwater should factor in, but only in that we know that it's going to be addressed by the city engineers
Okay.
along the way.
Okay.
And it actually would be maybe useful at this time. Mr. Fluke, if you could pull up those conditions of approval.
Sure.
But go ahead.
Yeah, and while I'm talking, I'll try to do that, although I'm not very good at doing two things. I was just going to point out that, as the applicant pointed out for you, a denser project means more streets, more driveways, more rooftops, more impervious surface. And that was the difficulty with the earlier iterations that had more density. The runoff that was generated by that additional impervious surface is unable to be a common site because of the high groundwater and because of the lack of an adequate offsite receiving facility. And so that's why you're looking at the plat that you're looking at.
And while you're pulling that up, I might comment too on the notion of connectivity, because if you've been in the neighborhood, there's no way that this can connect to anything except Ontario. And whether that's two connections or one connection is almost a moot point. There is no place else it can connect unless you want to buy out some homeowners and tear down some houses. But we won't go there. We won't. So these are the conditions of approval. That, and slide on down to the bottom.
Well, on number 4, it says prior to approval of the final plat, all improvements shown on the preliminary plans. So those are the ones we saw dated May 2000. Those are the ones in the application. So does the wording of that actually leave room for making sure that it's right and maybe changing it if it's not, or not adding? I mean, just read the first sentence. Are we approving by this action, are we approving those preliminary plans because it's becoming a condition as stated with that date and everything?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, I understand your concern, and what you're seeing here is a higher level of detail than we would typically have at a preliminary plat because of the difficulty with the water. So what you should be focusing on there is, yes, we want conformance with the concept that we've seen in the preliminary design. But the last sentence really says it all, is that all site improvements are subject to additional permitting, where we will review the construction drawings before any one shovel of dirt is turned and the applicant is issued a permit. And so the idea is that we get another bite at the apple. We review the construction drawings and make sure all the drainage calculations work based on the soil conditions, the groundwater conditions that are present. Once we're satisfied that those have all been accounted for, then the plans can be stamped approved. They can go build the project, and then they bring the final plat back to us with everything constructed in conformance with the concept. Okay. So the details might change. The trench might get a little bit bigger. It might have to broaden out. It might be less deep. All of that is still subject to final engineering review and approval before anything gets built.
Okay. Commissioners, other questions for city staff or?
Darren, could you put up the GIS map for me, please?
Might help if you can see that, I presume. Maybe I can turn off the aerial for you.
Is there a elevation contour layer that you could add to that by any chance?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, there is.
It's easier to see it on the improvement plans. There's
The drawing.
on the drawings.
Yeah.
There's some topo on the first sheet.
Do you want me to go to the improvement plans? I mean, or Commissioner, are you
Yes.
seeing what you want to
Yes,
see
I
here?
do. Thank you.
Okay.
And there's not a lot of elevation on this. Hence part of the problem for the standing water.
Commissioners, are you still waiting for it?
I don't know. Are we?
No.
Are we else? I
I'm waiting for
didn't
you
know
to
that you
I'm
were
trying to
scrolling.
get to
Did
the
you got your
contour.
question answered? Okay, we got to see. Okay, so do we have any more? Are we at a point where someone would like to make a motion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Commissioner Benner.
I would move that the Sandpoint Planning and Zoning Commission, after consideration of the criteria and relevant standards of the Idaho Code and the Sandpoint City Code, recommend approval of city application number PS 24-0002, Tombstone Subdivision, Double Penny Partners request for approval of a preliminary plat to subdivide a 3.4 acre parcel into 8 single-family residential lots at 1207 Ontario Street. The recommendation is based upon the staff report and relevant evidence and testimony contained in the public record and is subject to the conditions of approval as noted in the staff report, including the additional staff or recommendation.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second. And it would be beneficial, I think, for both us and the public if that conditions of approval was broadcast again. Any comments on the motion on the table? And these are the conditions of approval, so that we're all, that are part of this motion. All right.
And number 5 would be the final plat shall dimension and establish drainage easements as necessary to accommodate the approved final drainage plan.
Yep, correct. Okay, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Commissioner
Oh,
Torpe?
what, 1 second.
Your second?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, there was a second. Thank you.
I didn't hear you.
That was a second by Commissioner Boyd. Commissioner Torpe?
Aye.
Commissioner Boyd?
No.
Commissioner Benner?
Yes.
Commissioner Dunkel?
No.
Commissioner Hastings?
Yes,
Mr. Chairman, motion passes.
thank you. With the public hearings now complete, we'll proceed with the Commissioners' Roundtable. Anything we need to chat about?
Well, just one thing that I think we should take a look at in the future for design standards would be places like on Ontario there for a place for the bus to pull off, a place for consolidated mailboxes. Something that we may want to, as design standards going forward in the future here.
And that was something that will come out of the comp plan once it's approved.
Yeah, yeah, just it seems like so many more. of these
Before you all
places
depart,
are-
thank you for everybody who contributed this evening.
Is that part of the multimodal plan? The bus stop stuff?
Well, and I'm just thinking of space off of the road itself. And one comes to mind is go out to this Schweitzer cutoff. When the bus stops out there, you can wait 5 minutes. If they have a place to pull off to pick up people, then your traffic continues to flow. And they're also going to the neighborhood mailboxes.
Yeah.
Hand deliveries going to fade away as we go into the future. And if we make some provisions for something like that also. Because a lot of times people drive up to get their mail or.
Is there anybody here who knows, is that a city thing or is that a post office decision? Who makes those decisions?
Maybe a new city planner's decision.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually, I mean, it's me really that like decides how they build the improvements in the right of way. We don't have anything in our code that requires that. I do think it's a good idea. I do work with the spot bus people, or have been over the last year, to try to help them build some benches and eventually some covered bus stops, but I have not, required that they build full turnouts. I think it's a good idea to explore that, and maybe like on arterials,
Yeah.
Right.
certain, like a local road, it doesn't really matter on a local street, but Schweitzer cutoff is, if it were in Sandpoint, it would be an arterial, and it might be a good
Pine
idea to
Street.
just.
Yeah.
So those discussions have never happened, or has it ever come up, or?
Not as far as I'm aware, but it's pretty easy to come up with, some basic standards for how to design those bus pullouts. And really, it just goes into the planting strip is essentially what you're doing. You're taking away the planting strip for
Right.
40 feet. That's really not that big of a deal. So, yeah, and I don't know, the other thing to think about is like when you require it, does the city pay to build these bus stops, or do we have something in our code that says if you're doing a development adjacent to the existing route, do you have to provide a turnout? I don't really know the answer to that. I don't know how
Well,
that's ever
right.
set up.
And your routes change over time too.
Right.
Is
So is
there,
I'm sorry, just because we don't have an action item topic, nor do we have a discussion point that's been put on the agenda.
Correct.
Is there a consensus from planning and zoning to have city staff take a look at this issue? Is there some direction in that context?
I think at this time, I was just bringing it up, so when we start to do our review for the comp plan, it's one of the conditions that we, we might start considering at that time.
I just want to be careful
That'd be
we don't
yes.
end up in a discussion on an item that wasn't posted on our agenda.
Correct. Gotcha.
the other thing I'd like to bring up, especially now that we have our new city planner, there was discussion prior with our former city planner about, looking at code for ADUs. And it seems like that's been lost in the wayside, and I would still, and especially in the size, I think we had come to a consensus at the time of 750 square feet as from 900 square feet. I would like to bring that back to the table, or is that something that we can continue to move forward, since we had started those discussions, actually 8 months of discussions about this particular thing, and then design, Heather Upton had brought to us design workbook or a design book about
Pattern book, I think.
pattern book about ADUs. And again, that was another, that discussion was so well thought out and it's brought up multiple times, and I'd hate to see that we have forgotten about that. And I would like to see that come to us again, as soon as possible, actually. So,
Sure. Don't make it a discussion.
No, it's not a discussion. I did just want to point out also that on the, in the budget hearing tomorrow night and on the budget narratives on the city's ClearGov page, this is all public information. The planning department has budgeted $25,000 for the establishment of historic district downtown, which is an initiative that was directed last year by city council, got put on pause when we lost our planning staff. So one of the things we've already informed Bill about is that's an effort that we have the mayor's support on that. We have some talented staff with Heather herself and the Arts, Culture, Historic Preservation Commission yourselves. That's obviously going to have to be a planning and zoning effort as well. So that's another project we intend to undertake in the new fiscal year, is re-engage possibly with outside consultants on the development of historic district downtown. So I just wanted to point that out because you mentioned the ADU initiative. Another one was this discussion of historic districts downtown.
And I think you'll see the code amendments coming forward in rapid succession after the comprehensive plan.
Yes. Was there a budget item for paying this commission, or do we remain volunteers? I'm just curious.
Volunteers.
There we have it, yes.
We do. I just wonder if they bumped it up. Inflation.
All righty.
So, Jason, correct to assume that height limitations will be one of those amendments that will be coming forth?
That's up to you.
Well,
Discussion on that
Yep.
will come.
I assume
Discussion will be in the future.
Discussion of
yes.
historic overlay districts downtown. Yeah, I mean, that's what the community indicated was of interest.
So all in, wait tomorrow night, fingers crossed, hopefully, then we could move forward, hopefully.
There's nothing in the comp plan will change immediately our zoning regulations. but
Right.
That will
Right.
follow.
There's clear desires and values expressed in the comp plan for
But we
historic
can begin
preservation.
those discussions, because as we all know, that takes months and months before we actually, come to a consensus and going back to the drawing table back and forth. So hopefully, will we continue to have 2 meetings a month again?
Well, with the city planner and staff, and there's opportunities for more work at this commission instead of just reviewing development applications. So we definitely intend to get back onto a more regular meeting schedule.
Good.
Yeah.
So we can start the process over.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be nice. It's been,
I know.
yeah, it's been,
Yeah.
I would imagine.
nice to have a break.
There'd be a little
sometimes.
backlog of work coming up.
Yeah. And we do have an assistant planner on staff now as well as of the last 2 weeks, Radhika Bittman. So we've got a full planning team. Yeah. Building planning department is fully staffed now. So
Good,
exciting.
good.
Yeah.
So is Darren, are you gonna be around for a little while or is this?
Well,
Bon
under this
voyage?
current contract, I'll be around probably through the end of the month or so. And then, of course, I'm always available to help as the need arises, with other things. So I do have some inside knowledge now on the weaknesses of the zoning ordinance that I'll be helping to advise Bill on. And so,
Good. Did we talk about one of those tonight?
we may have touched on one.
Yeah. Oh, man, a dead horse.
Tough spot. Okay. All right.
Oh, just one more thing. If we could ever have dinner here, that would be great.
Budget.
I've said that before. Talking about stuff we're never gonna have. We can add that.
Budget for that. There you go. There we go.
Hey, 25 grand for
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, we only want $50.
Cookies would work.
All righty. With hopefully no further business before the commission, this meeting is now adjourned at 7:05 PM. Thank you all for being here.
Good job, Mr. Chairman.